Hey, everybody. Welcome to Leading by Following. This is a podcast where we want you to recognize the fact that you are a leader. Everybody is leading somebody. And because of that, who we follow as leaders really, really matters. My name is Jody Flowers. I'm blessed to host this podcast, and today you are in for a treat. We've got the man himself, our lead pastor, John Dukes, as our first guest. We're going to talk about who he is, how he got here, and where God is using him to take us as a church family. My lead pastor, and I'm so excited. So, hey, welcome. Let's give it a listen. All right. Well, what a joy to be with you today, bro.
Yes.
Thanks for making the time, which,
absolutely,
as you've already learned, you don't have any of, right?
That is very true. That is very true.
I think I remember you saying something along the lines of, I've been on the job for 3 days and I'm already 2 weeks behind.
Yeah.
Is that true?
That's exactly what it felt like. And so I don't want to guess how far behind I am 3 months in. So
Oh, it's all good, man. But thank you again, seriously. And kind of just getting started, everybody knows who you are on the stage.
Yeah.
But a lot of them don't know the backstory. So just a little bit of where you're from and, just a little bit of where you're from.
Yeah. So originally from the state of Georgia, just born in Athens. So it's legitimate when you might hear some barking or anything like that. Like it's homegrown. But anyway, my dad works for Walmart as a truck driver. That's what brought us to South Carolina. So and then we've never left. And so spent most of middle school and high school, actually all of middle school and high school in Lawrence County, went to North Greenville, and so and then have kind of served in churches in Abbeville and Fountain Inn and now in Chapin.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. But yeah, this is, it's a really cool story when you really get to really look at the nuts and bolts and the way the Lord just kind of wove it all together. Because when we moved, I would have told you, worst thing in my life, what in the world? But yet, had we not moved, I wouldn't have met this guy named Daniel who leads me to the Lord, teaches me what it looks like to read your Bible, to pray, to have a relationship with the Lord, and then that leads to another relationship, and then that leads to all these other things.
Right.
And so, of course, in the moment, it looked bleak. You're what was it, 5th grade? It was 93, whatever, 93. So, it's snowing, it's blizzarding outside. That was the weekend we moved. We moved in 6 inch snow. That would have been crazy, South Carolina, to get 6 foot of snow. But March of 93, and we're coming, and yet, so you're thinking, oh, this is the worst thing in the world. And yet you look back and you go, man, what a gift of the Lord to arrange that.
Right.
So.
Now, worst thing in the world, right? So I'm thinking leaving Georgia, Athens, coming to the upstate of South Carolina, where that team from the upstate resides.
Yeah.
That just doesn't seem to me to be a horrible, but we won't go there. You've got the shoes on, which...
just making sure to represent,
always
trying to
gotcha. Yeah.
Trying to stay in the color scheme with the black and, kind of go with the red, there we go.
Yeah. Well, cool. So thanks for the backstory. I don't want to let you go too long on the Georgia thing. We'll be talking about national championships and stuff. But so you talked about coming to South Carolina.
Yeah.
How about just a little bit of the story of coming to Chapin Christian Community Church?
Yeah. So that was a really cool thing. So, and it was funny because I'm horrible with the dates and the years, but Uno, your boy Andrew, and I meet in a worship school called 10,000 Fathers. And so there were 4 of us, including myself, from South Carolina. There were multiple people from multiple states and all that kind of stuff. But the 4 of us from South Carolina kind of connected, and we were. I'll say it. Let me try to be generous, basically, to myself. We were, of mixed ages and things like that. I was the old guy in the group, basically, but
bumping close to what, 37, 35?
No, I was at that point. I had to be late early 30s. I was probably early 30s.
Okay.
So anyway, late 20s, early 30s, somewhere in there. I forget when we started this, but
dirt.
I know. So, well, I mean, your boy's still in college. I mean, like we're still like, anyway. So, but anyway, built the relationship there. Well, there was one summer, 10,000 Fathers had made a partnership with Northern Seminary. And so they were kind of offering where you had already, I think it was like, you were like a third of your master's degree had already been accomplished as long as you finished 10,000 Fathers. And so Andrew is starting seminary and calls me and says, hey, our week in Chicago is also the week of our student camp. So could you lead worship? Could your band? And I was like, absolutely. I was kind of hoping to start seminary as well with those guys, but I was like, you know what? I'd rather make some money in the week than I would spend the money. So I said, yeah. And so my band went to Toccoa Falls, led worship for Fusion's summer camp. And we did a night of worship before we left here in the Fusion Center. Also did a baptism service that Sunday night following it. Wow. And so we got to be here. And it was one of those things. I remember going home. Actually, I didn't go home. I met Sarah. We had traveled to Nashville, so I had to drive from here to Nashville that night. Well, not that night, the next day, something like that. But anyway, as I got there and Sarah asked, how did it go? I was like, oh my gosh, this church was amazing. I said, it was awesome. And so so it had always stood out to me. Well, anyway, that was also, that week of camp was the first week that Dustin was coming on staff as like the assistant student minister. Yeah. I'm not exactly sure what the role was. Dustin Serrano, yep. And so Tim Walker's the youth pastor. He makes me put Dustin in my band. I tried to resist for a little bit, and then I found out that was more of a demand than a question. And so I was like, okay, well, our band got along with Dustin great. He was awesome. And so we just kind of stayed connected, and then all of a sudden, we had been a part of a church plant in Fountain Inn. Things were going well, but just sensing the Lord was kind of calling us out, kind of had reached out to a few places, but the doors just weren't opening. And so we finally just stepped away and just said, I think the Lord just may be calling us out and not necessarily calling us to something in this season. Went to work for FedEx. And I remember my car was getting worked on at Walmart in Simpsonville. And I got a call from Dustin, and he was like, yeah, it's time for me to step down. I'm leaving. He had kind of become the contemporary worship leader after Joe. I don't know if it's like an interim title. I don't know what his title was. But anyway, he said, dude, you would be an amazing fit for this church. You would be a perfect fit. That was his line. And so I went to Sarah and was just like, hey, I know you've already signed your contract, but this thing opened up. Yeah. And the next thing I said, she goes, well, let's at least see. And I reached out to you. I emailed you and said, hey, I don't know if you remember me.
Now I do remember. Yeah. And I don't know how many people know this story, but you guys, the 10,000 Fathers guys, were having a night of worship in Greenville, I think it was.
Yes.
And so Michelle and I went to be there for Andrew, right? And Morgan, his girlfriend at the time, they weren't married, was going to also drive up. Yeah. So it's a big deal. We were getting to hang with our boy. You mentioned Uno a minute ago. There's a story there why he's Uno, and your nickname would be?
Dos.
All right. People can figure that out, right? Yeah. But anyway, so we're there. Yeah. And each one of you guys kind of had different leadership responsibilities that night.
We did.
And then you led a song or two.
Yeah.
And I leaned over to Michelle. Didn't know you from Adam's House Cat. Yeah. Or whatever. No, I'm not a cat guy. But I didn't know you. And I leaned over to Michelle and was like, if I had ever have an opportunity to hire that guy, I'm going to try to hire him. Yeah. Now, what year would that have been?
Oh, gosh. That had to have been 2015, maybe.
Right. Because you end up here in 2018?
2017. July of 2017 is when I stepped down at Capstone in 2016. Okay. So I went about a year with FedEx. Wow. And so
Wow.
But yeah,
Beautiful how the Lord works, man.
Yeah, and had no idea. So, emailed you. I love it. It's perfect. Cause you were like, yeah, man, I've passed on your resume to Rick. And then the next email from Rick was like, oh man, got you, John. So glad. Thank you for reaching out. You'll communicate with me from now on and not Pastor Jody. And so I was like, okay. And so, but it was great. Yeah. There was a point where Rick looked at me, called me on the phone after, how did Courtney say it? The best, worst interview I've ever seen in my life.
Dude, the FedEx truck interview.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was awesome.
I was doing a phone interview, and phones have come a long way since then. I was doing a phone interview from a gas station in my FedEx truck, in my FedEx uniform, most of the time in Princeton, South Carolina, on 25, Highway 25, at a hotspot.
Nice.
And there was no hotspot as far as Wi-Fi or anything like that. And so half the questions I remember couldn't even hear, didn't even understand, just was big words here, there, and just going, well, I heard like 3 words that I recognized, so I'm just going to answer it kind of like this. According to Danny Blocker, some of them I was just way off. Never even answered the question. Never came close. But just something the Lord just kind of placed some favor on it. And next thing I know, I'm at the Greenwood Mall getting ready to unload. It's in June, May. No, it's the end of May. And Rick calls me and says, hey, would you like to not work for FedEx anymore? And I was like, yes, sir. I still got to talk to my wife, and we'll, but yes, sir. I would really love that.
Yeah. So God calling you out of Cornerstone,
Capstone.
Excuse me. I say that
you're
every
good.
time. Dude.
It's all good. It's all good.
Capstone. He's calling you out of Capstone.
Yep.
But he also called you out of a FedEx truck.
Yes.
And that's thank you, Lord.
Yes.
Right.
So much. So much. Boy, I loved working in the air conditioning again.
Oh my gosh. So one thing I do want to clarify, Rick is Rick Faulkner.
Yes.
Who used to be for 10 years director of operations.
Yes.
Right. And so
one of the best guys in the world.
Oh yeah, he's an awesome brother. So one of the reasons he reached back to you to say all future correspondence will go through him.
Yes.
Was because I told him, I said, look, I know John.
Yeah.
And I told him the story about the night in Greenville.
Yeah.
And I said, so I've got to remove myself from this process totally. Right. I don't want to influence it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why. That's why he did that. And it was amazing. So, wow. 2018, coming up on 8 years. Yep. Well, the story today that I really want us to focus on is the transition. So you come as a worship pastor.
Yep.
COVID hits, and I remember you and I having a conversation. Yeah, we can laugh about it now.
Yeah.
COVID hits, and you and I are having really one of our deepest conversations the way I remember it.
Yeah.
And do you mind me sharing this?
Absolutely, go for it.
This is a lot. This is totally unscripted.
Yeah.
So you told me, hey, I feel like I'm nothing more than a singer of songs. Mm. And man, the Lord took that and just penetrated my heart with it because, and I remember telling you, I said, dude, you're so much more than that. You are a leader. Mm. You're a worship leader. You lead us into God's presence. Yeah. We went through that whole thing. But that was really the beginning of me starting to see you more in totality as apart from your role.
Yeah.
To really see and know your heart and get to just love who God has made you to be. And so that was a turning point event for me, a crossroads, whatever we want to call it. So, I remember that conversation. And so that's COVID, that's 2020-ish. And then all of a sudden, another one of our former staff members, Hugo Morocco, shout out to Rick, Hugo, all the guys. Yes. And Hugo said, hey, have you ever considered asking John Dukes to preach one Sunday? I'm like, no. Well, you ought to give it some thought. So I did. And I prayed about it. And I don't know how long it was after that, but then all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh. When he was telling me he was more than just a singer of songs, I don't think he was talking about this, but this is it. Because I heard somebody who could communicate the gospel clearly, compellingly, powerfully. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. And
to an empty room. That was my first one, to an empty room. And I didn't think through the whole camera thing. Wore some bright yellow shirt. Looked like a dadgum Big Bird on the behind the pulpit. And Mark was just like, yeah, we got to change what you're wearing next time.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, that makes total sense now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah, and that would be Mark Slice.
Mark Slice,
right,
yes.
who's over our media production stuff. Awesome brother as well. But yeah, that was awesome. So talking to a machine is not where it's at. But even in that context, it was clear. So, people have said to me now that we're on the other side of this transition having taken place from me out of the lead pastor role and you into it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we look back now. We saw what you were doing. You started asking Jonathan and before Pastor Bob, it was Pastor Paul, Paul Allen. Shout out to Paul Allen.
Yep.
But we saw, we know what you were doing now. I was like, no, that really wasn't the plan.
Yeah.
That was just a matter of us shifting from solo preacher model to team teaching.
Right.
Which lots and lots of great reasons for that. But one of the ones that was primary in my thinking was, if this church is somehow not built on, that's too strong of a phrase.
Yeah.
But if this church is somehow overly influenced by one personality from a stage or from a pulpit, we're going to be in trouble one day.
Right.
And God's gifted way too many people to bring that word of his. And so that was the real motive. But then in the process of that, you just began to get a few more opportunities and a few more. And so, So anyway, bringing us to that point of transition, October of 2023.
Yeah.
We have left the denomination in June 30th of 2023. I almost said praise God, but we all understand. That was just a difficult time. That was
a hard time.
But boy, it was a celebration point for sure.
Very much.
Love a lot of my brothers that are still in that denomination, brothers and sisters, etc. Not a slam on the denomination.
Right.
It was just the right thing for us.
Right.
And we're very grateful the Lord allowed that. So 2023, October, we're at kind of our personnel team. We call it Staff Parish Personnel Team meeting. And one of those awesome people, and they're amazing, said, hey, now that we're not a part of a denomination, and Jody, no offense, but you won't be our pastor forever. I read between the lines, you will die, right? So what are we going to do to get our next pastor?
Right.
And this person, I think, had done some research or either in their background understood, succession plans.
Right.
So we really need to have a succession plan. And I'm like, man, that sounds right. So, I'm thinking, okay, what is a succession plan? So, so anyway, go out and try to do a little research. And Vanderbloom's book, Next, can't recommend it more highly. I read it, chaired the team. MJ Sorrell read it, amazing sister leader.
Absolutely.
Caroline Fogel, director of Ops, who followed in Rick. Amazing, amazing leader. So anyway, we're reading this book, and I put together this draft succession plan.
Yeah.
And present it to Staff Parish in February of 2024.
Yep.
And I had option A, option B, option C.
Yeah.
But again, in those options, they wanted an option D. And so we had to come back and work option D.
Right.
So long story was, Staff Parish decided after a time of prayer, a long season of prayer, that they were going to approach you about being the next lead pastor.
Yep.
And I was thrilled. Still am.
Yeah.
You're my pastor, man.
Yeah.
And so I love the way the Lord worked all that.
Yeah.
But I really want everybody to know it was not, October, hey, it should be John. Let's do it.
Yeah.
This was a lot of prayer. They vetted you. They thoroughly vetted you. Interviews, I mean, the whole 9 yards. They were very prayerful. And so then when it came along in April of 2024, the decision was then, hey, that needs to happen. And it's going to happen fairly soon. Now, one side note that I'm going to get, everybody's here to hear you talk. They're listening to hear you talk. So we're going to get to that. But I just remember praying about it.
Yeah.
In the midst of putting that succession plan together. And it wasn't an audible voice, but it was so clear.
Yeah.
And I'd made some comment from the pulpit a Sunday after you had preached when I was following. I was like, man, didn't Pastor John do a great job last week? He's going to be a great lead pastor somewhere, someday.
Yeah.
And it was from the pulpit while those words were coming out of my mouth. It was like the Lord said that somewhere is here and the time is soon.
Yeah.
And I was stunned. Not that it was here. I was celebrating that.
Right.
But the soonness was, okay. all right,
Right.
I'm about to turn 64.
Right.
That sounds really young to me now. but anyway, that's kind of how it went down.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
Staff Parish started, doing that process, and then here we come to April. So all of that being said, you're now 3 months removed.
Yeah.
First removed from worship pastor, who then was worship/fusion pastor, then was fusion pastor, now has transitioned into lead pastor role.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, how's it going, man?
Well, it's going great. That Lord willing and the creek don't rise, as my granddaddy would say. I don't have any more transitions in front of me.
Yeah, we're hoping that too.
I am looking forward to, oh man, what would this be like? I might have the same job for a couple of years. This is going to be great. But no, it's, honestly, I've been super blown away. And it hasn't been what I was planning or expecting, and I mean that in the best way possible. So, as you know, and as I've shared with, multiple times, even on Sunday, like still working on my master's degree, right now. So there's a lot going on. Like, the plate is still plenty full but the Lord has just been super kind in this. And, I think there's been a unity, there's been a graciousness, there's been just from the congregation. I sense it even in the staff. I sense it with
absolutely
key leaders. But just the Lord has just been, I think my biggest takeaway, the biggest thing from this has just been the kindness of the Lord to, it hasn't been flawless, making mistakes, and you kind of have little flubs and all that kind of stuff, but just the kindness of the Lord to just there's just a unity around where we're headed. Like, we talked about, I used that story, from that episode, that line, wheels up, and everybody keeps coming around. Like, they're just super excited. And I just see this, there's a hunger. There's a like, let's go. Like, we're not waiting around. This is great. And so, but just, my biggest thing has been just in this process is and which is again, a kindness of the Lord is just to remind me of the same thing that I'm wanting to preach and encourage and lead us towards, as far as the presence and prayer and things like that, are the things that the Lord just constantly reminds, don't forget that starts with you. Like, starts with, so my prayer life has grown, and I say this jokingly and not jokingly, in the sense of, there's definitely the need of dependence on the Lord to do some work. I mean, it's a different thing when you're the guy. I preached a few times in the last couple of years, 2 in a row or something like that. I mean, that happened some, but now all of a sudden you're doing 2, 3, 4 in a row. Like, it's like, Lord, we need something more than John's personality. Like, you're the one that's got to work. You're the one that's got to move. You're the one that's got to do this, because it isn't on me anyway. And that's been the other thing of what God's been up to as far as my life goes, and what's going on is it's the how do I say it? Like, it's the reminder that none of this, I can't do this on my own. And it's just not that I was ever thinking that I could do this on my own or anything like that, but it's the idea, the reminder constantly that the Lord just kind of just goes, you know what, you don't have to carry that weight. I don't have to carry that weight. We just, this past week, we're praying. I mean, we're praying for this every week, for people to give their life to Jesus, for lost people to be found, and then for those found people to go find people. And so we're praying for all of those things. But at the same time too, and don't get me wrong, I want to be faithful. I want to be faithful to the text. I want to be faithful to the word. I want to be faithful in doing the best that I can with the Holy Spirit in writing those sermons and planning and praying and all those things. But at the end of the day, that's up to the Lord. But you can take that into so many things. I shared with you shortly into January, like you feel the weight of every news you hear about someone going to the hospital, someone doing this, and you feel the weight of wanting to go and like literally have conversations or go meet with every single one of those people. But yet your capacity, especially at a church this size, you can't. To use the line of your guy, dollar in the jar kind of thing, you sometimes you have to do for one what you wish you could do for everybody.
That's right.
But the pull towards in your heart just beats and hurts for those that are struggling and those who've and it's like you're trying to meet. You try to meet every need, and if you're not careful, somewhere along the lines, at least for me, like I mean, early on, I was just catching myself like, you can't be everything to everybody. Like that's just not. You're not going to be able to sustain that way. Not with a family at home, and golly day, you just added a new baby now. You got a little 4-month-old now at home, and those. You can't do all that stuff. You've got to lean and press in, which is so funny because that's exactly what I'm preaching and exhorting our church to do. Is just like lean into the Lord. This isn't on you. What you do in obedience, how you serve the Lord, is in response to His salvation. It's in response to what He's done. It's in response to the love that He has for you. You're not earning any of that love. Well, in the same way, it's like I have to remind myself again, like I said this past week, the gospel's not the diving board, it's the pool. And so I remind myself that even as a pastor, like the Lord builds the house. I labor and I'm gonna give it with everything. Right. Colossians 1:28, I want to labor with all of His strength, but at the same time, it's up to the Lord. And I get to live open-handed, and that's the biggest thing, which is so tempting though to, you catch yourself closing those hands. You're like, oh, I got to open up, got to open back up.
Man, so much of that's so good. I wish we just had a couple of days to kind of unpack it all. But you mentioned the kindness of God. How when I said, how's it going? And you initially started talking about just some evidences of God's kindness towards you as you are in a new role. And I think that part of that kindness, not that you need pumping up or any of that, but I think a part of His kindness is to give some confirmation, some affirmation.
Absolutely.
Right. And so and you and I may have mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but when I was you gifted me with an opportunity to preach on March the 8th. And as I was beginning that message, the line was going to be Pastor John has done a great job these past 2 weeks, setting us up in this Becoming One series. And before I could even get the words out at the 9 o'clock traditional service, I said, Pastor John has done a grr. I don't even think I got great. I think it was grr. And once I got grr for great out, grr, the room erupted into applause. And they didn't know I was saying the past 2 weeks preaching. They were responding to, Pastor John's done a great job transitioning. What an affirmation. What a confirmation. Kindness of God.
Very much so.
And as you know, I don't need to tell you anything, but as you know, the more dependent you are upon Him, the stronger in Him you become. And as you walk in His strength, He never removes. It's John's strong enough now; he doesn't need the kindness anymore.
Right.
His mercies are new every day. Right. So that kindness is always there. When things are going great, when they're not, and not just for leaders, not just for us. Everybody watching, everybody listening, everybody reading right now, they know what the kindness of God is all about. And how His kindness is just rich in mercy towards us, and especially when we're most needy of it. That kindness is just there. And so I'm so glad to hear you say that's what you've been experiencing is the kindness of God. And this beautiful faith family here, they're conduits of that kindness.
Absolutely.
And I hear a lot. My phone number has not changed. My email address has not changed. And so I still get the emails and the texts.
Yeah.
Pastor John did a great job today.
Yeah.
And I'm like, tell him. I don't. I just tell them, I will tell you. And so, but just thrilled for what I've experienced in a behind the scenes role of watching the transition take place. Kind of a little bit of knowing what you were going to be stepping into, right? Mm-hmm. But also seeing how you are stepping and how I know the Lord's leading and how the fruit is evident that he's in the midst of this, which is so encouraging.
Absolutely.
So thinking about that, you mentioned the kindness of God. Would you, as a real blessing, would you feel safe? I mean, hey, it's just me and you having a conversation, right? Would you feel safe in talking about maybe what's the greatest challenge you faced up until this point, or I don't know if you want to call it an obstacle. Yeah. Let's stay with opportunity. There's Caroline's word. She likes to use these aren't issues or challenges or problems; they're opportunities. Yeah. What's maybe been the greatest opportunity you've kind of bumped into?
Well, I mean, I think there's. I think it's been kind of continuing to help us see. I think for me, let me say it this way, is very much with what we preached in the Legacy and Launch series, which is we aren't headed in a new direction. We're taking the next step in the direction we've already been walking. Yeah. Like we've been walking in this. And so the challenge, opportunity, whatever that we want to use has been just honestly just staying faithful and true to that in the sense of like, I'm not trying to take us, in a completely new direction that actually what I want you to do is see that each step that we take is actually where we've already been walking. And so we use the illustration, like, Moses to Joshua, that Moses was leading the people of Israel to the promised land. Yeah. Well, when the leadership transition happened at the Jordan River and it transitions from Moses to Joshua, well, the direction didn't change. Joshua's still leading him into the promised land. Yeah. Now, some of the strategies looked a little different because the way you get out of Egypt is not the same way you take hold of the land that the Lord's laid out before you. But at the same time, your direction has stayed the same. But it's kind of constantly keeping that in focus. I think the challenge for me is also the opportunity has been honestly balancing everything. Is still working on a master's degree. It's amazing.
Hey, can I interrupt? Yeah. What's your I know, but tell everyone what your master's degree is.
It's a master's of arts in spiritual formation and leadership. And so, I mean, it has been it's been so good. It's been the best decision. Outside of Jesus and Sarah, and coming here, a lot of decisions. So we'll put it in the top 10 of decisions that's been good. But it's been balancing everything. And so what the opportunity has been is to, again, going back to what I said earlier, of just reminding myself that one, this isn't dependent on me. I don't need to kind of drive this thing at 90 miles an hour. Like, no, we need to do what we have the capacity in this moment to do. And so, and don't get me wrong, I am looking so much to graduating in May. So we're almost there. We're in the home stretch, but at the same time, that's been one of the challenges is like you have dreams. And so, for the last year, as we've been preparing for this, like there's dreams in your heart. I got journal pages and bullet lists and all this kind of stuff that I'm just constantly adding things to. Yeah, that's awesome. And you get excited about those, but at the same time you're going, you know what? I need to stay at the pace of Jesus and not get ahead of him. Like I trust that this is where he's leading us, but at the same time, like we just need to stay at his pace.
Keep in step with the Spirit.
Yes. Galatians 5:16. Yeah. And so it's the and I forget the Japanese theologian, but the 3 mile an hour God that if a general walking pace takes you about 3 miles in an hour. Yeah. And so it's just like a 3 mile an hour God, just like you're at a pace that stays with the Lord as opposed to getting ahead of him and trying to go faster. And then I would also say, and this is kind of a funny thing. So Caroline, she's our director of operations now, and fantastic, does an amazing job. But anyway, one of my other challenges is realizing that my voice carries more weight than it did as of December 31st. You know, so we're talking about the prayer chapel, and I'm loving, you know, the Lord's been so kind in that as well. You know, if we're praying during services and things like that. Well, Carolina's sick coming out of kind of the Christmas break and all that kind of stuff. So we have a staff meeting. Well, it's the week before, you know, I'm laying out some vision pieces of, you know, prayer, presence, formation, you know, mission, thinking about the residency program, things like that. And I just mentioned the prayer chapel and my heart beat for what I want us to do. Well, the next thing I know, some of our staff have already gone down. They've taken measurements. They're doing all kinds of stuff. And I was like, and so Caroline comes in and goes, "What is going on?" And I was like, that's my bad. Because people were excited and they were like, "Yes, the lead pastor wants to do that. Let's go." And I was like, oh, no one's really, you know, John said anything as a student pastor, like, "Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, we'll see if that happens."
So you saying you were a little more than 3.0 at that point? You were just a little bit faster, maybe?
A little bit where I was just kind of like, oh, wow. I got to be careful what I say because everybody's going to jump on it. And if we're not careful, we can get ahead of, you know, and get things and do things in a way that doesn't necessarily, there's a kindness in the way that you lead through some of those things. That is something different. That was something new we were adding. And we needed to be wise in the way that we led through that. So, but that was that I look back and I laugh, you know, it was just funny. And so Caroline and I, our phrase for the first month, as you know, was kind of like, "We'll get better at this. We'll get better at this."
Wow. That's cool.
But anyway,
that's really cool. And you are.
Yeah.
I think it's just obvious to everybody, that you are,
Yeah.
that you were made for this.
Thank you.
It's the right moment.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I just want to brag, as I've bragged on you and bragged on our team.
Yeah.
I also want to brag on the congregation.
Oh, absolutely.
They, you know, everybody's like, nobody likes change except a baby with a dirty diaper. You know, how change is so hard to everybody. And change is hard.
Yeah.
But man, they have been gracious. The appearance that, from my viewpoint, it's been beautiful. It has been, I don't want to use the word seamless, but it's been seamless.
Yeah.
And to see them just embrace, they'd already embraced you. And that's the beauty too. Again, being an independent network church.
Yes.
Being able to do what God led this church to do, which was to take an 8-year member of staff that they knew, loved, understood, that person who knew and loved them as a church family, understood, people who are on the same page vision-wise. You mentioned, hey, we're not going in a new direction. It's the next step in that same direction we've been traveling. And I'm still waiting on my not new but next T-shirt or hat. I don't know when it's coming.
Probably will come after I graduate.
All right, I'm waiting on it. It's not new, it's next. I just think that's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But that whole idea of watching them transition.
Yeah.
After, 25 years is a long time of kind of used to the same face, but boy, was it time. Can you imagine having to look at this face for that long? So it's a great thing, but then it's hard to shift gears when you've been in a certain mode for a while, but they have shifted gears beautifully.
Yeah.
And just to see the fruit and the excitement, to sense the excitement. So I'm just thrilled. Could not be happier.
Yeah.
Could not be more proud of them, this team. You were a peer, part of the staff team.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you're the leader of the staff team. That's a big transition for the leader and for the followers. Mm-hmm. So kudos to everybody. They respect you. They still give you the business.
Oh, absolutely.
Which, if they did not, I'd be worried.
Me too.
Because I'm like, they gave it to me.
Too.
Why aren't they giving it to John? But it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It really is beautiful, and I'm so thrilled and honored to be able to watch it and to be a part of it. And I'm thrilled that you're my lead pastor.
Oh, man.
I'm so honored to know. Honored is the wrong word. I'm so blessed to know who you are and to be able to get in behind and say, let's go. Bobby Scott, another amazing guy on our team, has had me do some online, I think you'd call it online pastor, during the services, during the live streams. So I'm in there just corresponding with people, which has been amazing. I've loved doing that. But each week that I've done it, as we begin the service, I've hashtagged let's go, and hashtag wheels up.
Let's go.
Both times.
Let's go.
Or 3 times. I don't remember. Anyway, I love it. I think it's great. So, all right. So the obstacle, we under the balance.
Yeah.
The balance, and that's a challenge. I don't think that'll probably ever go away, even when transition's not in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Balance is always going. Lim Carter, who's in heaven with Jesus now, was my DS for a long time, district superintendent.
Yeah.
He was the leader in the United Methodist Church that brought us, Michelle and I, and Andrew, to Chapin. Forever indebted to him for that. Forever. But he used to say the hardest thing, Jody, for you in ministry will always be keeping the main thing the main thing.
Yeah.
And I used to think, well, that's the gospel, which it is.
Right.
It's pointing people to Jesus and decisions and discipleship and all that. The main thing's a big thing.
Yeah.
But you can't keep the main thing unless you're maintaining you.
Yeah.
And that's where that balance comes into play. And so, way to go for recognizing that. Way to go for leaning into that. And you've got a good rhythm established. I think a really healthy rhythm established. The question would be, now that you're not 3 days on the job, but more like 3 months on the job, do you still feel 2 weeks behind? Or is it more 20? Or do you feel like, nah, I'm all right?
Yeah, I think it depends on which week you ask me. So this week, we just, depending on when you release this, we just had some potential bad weather. And so out of precaution, we just went ahead and shut the offices down on this past Monday. Yeah. So this week kind of feels it's a little out of your routine. All of a sudden your Tuesday, which is kind of a day I've tried to set aside as more of a writing day and things like that and prayer day. All of a sudden it's your Tuesday, but it's also your Monday and you're trying to catch up on a few things. And so this week feels a little bit like that, but on average, I feel like I'm getting a hang in the sense of, like I said, just measuring, hey, this is what's in me that I can do right now. Yeah. And you know what? I don't need to try to overextend because again, one, like I said, and I've joked a couple of times, my hope and prayer is this is it. Now Sarah and I always keep our yes on the table. He wants to, whatever the Lord wants to do, he wants to send us across the world or, across the country. It doesn't matter. We'll always say yes if it's clear the Lord's leading that. Right. But my hope is, and hopefully the church will still want that they get another pastor for the same guy for 25 years. Yeah. So, that'd be amazing. And that would be that's my plan. That's my hope. And we're, so it's also just kind of, I can do what I can do right now. And because one, we're going to be here for a really long time. I don't, I don't have to think through. It's kind of like when Jordan was graduating and Jackson's starting to get into that because, in his junior year.
These are kids.
Yeah, these are kids. And so you start realizing, they're about to move out. Oh my gosh, now I got to teach them everything that I feel like I didn't teach them. And it's like drinking from a fire hose or something like that. And at the same time, just to be like, nah, we don't have to try to answer everything. We don't have to try to solve, every sermon doesn't have to cover every potential topic and opportunity because Lord willing, we're going to be here for a long time. We're going to be preaching for a long time.
There you go. So that idea of trying to teach them everything you hadn't taught them yet. I laughed out loud because poor Andrew, when he was getting ready to go off to Clemson, it was a Saturday. It was like 98 degrees. And I realized I hadn't taught him.
This is the tire changing thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Hey, bud, we're going to go out and practice changing the tire today. He's like, Dad, it's 98 degrees. I got it. I'm like, no, we're going to change the tire today. But anyway.
The rubber is melting.
Yes, indeed.
Why are we out here?
But I want to kind of use this to kind of bring our time, which has been amazing for me. Thank you again.
Absolutely.
Oh, my gosh. But the idea of, I guess I just can do what I got to do. Yeah. I can only do what I can do.
Right.
And that idea of trusting the Lord, right? Yeah. And I've tried to share in my own heart with myself and with people over the years God's responsible for the outcomes.
Right.
God's responsible for results.
Right.
I'm only responsible for obedience.
Yeah.
And so it's listening to what the Lord says,
Yeah.
asking him to give me the courage to do it, but then trusting him with the outcome, trusting him with results. Because if I want to just feel like I'm only going to attempt what I can do, apart from trusting him to do it,
Yeah.
not going to do a whole lot.
Yeah.
There's nothing of eternal significance for sure going to happen. Yeah. And I sense in you not just somebody who understands the weight of what you're in, not only somebody who has great faith in our great God, but I sense somebody who's willing to say, you know what, I'll be obedient. I'll do what I can, but I'm going to trust him with the outcome.
Yeah.
I'm going to trust him with the results. So thank you for being that kind of leader.
Yeah.
Let me give you
All right.
an opportunity to kind of give your hey, my kind of final word to the church family on this initial, initial podcast.
Yes.
What would you want to tell them?
I mean, I think it's everything that I've been saying. It's guys, we have a big, great, glorious God who is inviting us to play a role in a bigger story that is so much bigger than ourselves. And I believe the Lord, I think so many times, I'll speak for myself. I'll try not to use the we lingo. I'll just use me. I can look back and see so many times where the Lord was calling me into something, and I think there were moments of hesitation because I'm just concerned about well, what's this going to look like? How is this? Golly day, if I really do this, they're going to think I'm an idiot. Like what? Oh, if I fall flat on my face, I'm going to get laughed at. And yet every single time the Lord has used that. Sometimes I did fall flat on my face, but I look back to see what the Lord was forming in me. I mean, just the FedEx alone, what the Lord formed in me that year. I am who I am because of the way the Lord basically took me into the wilderness, basically took me off the stage, stripped away all of those things to make sure that my identity was going to be in Him and Him alone, and not in what I did, not in the fact, I mean, literally had recorded an EP, had written some songs, released an album, did all those kind of things, and then stepped away. It was almost like you're inching up. Had written and self-published an Advent devotional, all this kind of, and so you're going up and you're thinking, all right, this is what the Lord has. This is kind of the next step, and then out of nowhere it's gone and it strips away. And I look, and so for me, I mean, my encouragement to the church in this moment is seriously, wheels up. I believe the Lord is leading us into something. I believe the Lord has been shaping us over the years to be the church that we are, and is going to continue to shape us in the Genesis 12 kind of way of we've been blessed to be a blessing. Yeah. And so I'm going to be hey guys, it's time to step into who we are because of who God has made us, and say it is part of our responsibility in this story to raise up the next generation, to be people that are sending out. I don't want to kind of freak anybody out or whatever, but I'm praying in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm praying for missionary organizations will use terms like units. And so a unit could be a family of 5, like a mom and dad and 3 kids or whatever. A unit could be a single person, could be one person. But I'm praying for at least 3 to 5 units to be sent out to the mission field full time. We're leaving, we've been raised up in Chapin, but the Lord has done something in our heart, and I've got this heart for these people, and we're going to move there, and we're going to serve the Lord right there on the field. I'm praying for that. Right. And I'm believing that the Lord wants to do that. Yeah. I'm praying that the Lord would show up in a way like He has done in the history through the Hebrides revival, the businessman revival in New York, that He showed up in ways where people were hungry for His presence and willing to just obediently pray and seek His face, and then with whatever He said, respond to it in obedience. I'm praying for the Lord to do that all of a sudden, that this would be and Chapin as it is in heaven. I mean, like that's, and what I want to say to the church is, I want you to believe that that's possible.
Yeah.
Because again, it isn't built on us; it's built on the Lord, and the Lord can do it. There's a passage in Isaiah, and I am forgetting the actual verse reference or whatever, but basically, in thinking about kind of what's in front of him, the Lord says it is too small a thing. Like, in other words, you think this is this great, big, huge problem, this big, like we're talking about the world needing to know about the Lord, and the Lord wanted, and at the same time, like, how are we ever going to do, and I'm just going, oh no, it's too small a thing. So let's wheels up. Let's get ready and let's just say, hey, Lord, we're following you and we're going to trust you and we're going to put everything that we have behind you and what you're calling us to do. Yeah. So let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
P. John, lead us on, bro. P. John, lead us on. Man, love you, bro.
Love you too.
That's so great.
Yeah.
And guys, thank y'all for listening. Thank you for being a part of this. And hey, who knows? We might do it again. Yeah. A lot of fun for me. But love you guys. God bless.